Hey all. I'm Ashura Eden. This light is kind of funny, but I wanted to pop in and do this live stream because we are headed collectively into our next free event. So I'm going to hang out and take a beat while people jump on live. And if you're here live and want to say hi, say hello, introduce yourself, tell me who you are, where you're from, what's up. So, this post was titled Sacred Feminine Lineage, and why, if you're using law of attraction to try to create this, it's falling flat for you. And I would also add, like, what does sacred feminine lineage even mean, right? You know that you have a mission, a purpose, a ministry. And I don't mean that in terms of being a minister, but I mean in terms of a deeper leadership role to play in the world. Whether that's being a spiritual director, whether that's having a larger role in your corporate career. But the heart of it is that you know that you're here to touch many, 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 many lives. And you've tried things to do this. You've tried business strategy, you've tried law of attraction, you've tried mindset work. And you know that you're here to touch many, 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 many lives through this mission that has like a purpose behind it, not just through doing anything, through, this burning need to be like a spiritual minister, through this burning need to maybe be the head of your corporation because you want to make a difference from the top down. So it's a desire for service, it's a desire for helping people, it's a desire for leadership, and it's a desire to make a difference in the world. And for who you personally are, it's also tied to your own personal spirituality. And what you've tried things to have this happen. You've, tried the business coaches, and they're great. Some of the strategies have worked, perhaps. But you've also tried a lot of mindset work, affirmations, mantras, law of attraction, maybe even like going back to therapy, and maybe all the internal pieces you tried have not quite panned out the way that you desire. And there's a reason for this. The reason for this is that creation happens from yes, the like, I'm going to call it in space. It absolutely happens from that. It absolutely does happen from saying, I'm calling in, a sold out program now, or whatever the affirmations are. It does work from that space. But creation also pulls from two other spaces. It also pulls from owning, integrating, claiming the aspects of ourselves that we've repressed or pushed aside. And it comes from claiming, integrating, reclaiming our connection to God. So anything that you're doing with strategy is valid. Anything that you're doing with affirmations is valid. But there's these two other sources. And I'm going to say that most of us forget to work with them, right? Because culturally we're told don't look at the inner bad girl. And I'm using the term bad girl loosely because that's the name of the event coming up. But don't look at the inner bad girl. And we're also taught that spirituality either A, doesn't matter, or B, belongs only inside of organized religion. But the thing is this. We know what you want because you're here live or you're here on the replay. But that it's like the invoking it, right? I'm just talking out loud. I don't have a script for this. This is an intro to a free event. That calling it down into form is going to require several more pieces if if you truly are on an initiatory path, if you are truly working with the goddess, if your own healing journey, your own transformational journey, your own internal journey is also tied to, yoked to, anchored to in some way your work in the world. So here is what is required. Here is the piece that's been missing. There's actually two pieces. The first piece that's been missing is reclaiming your inner bad girl. And I'm going to break down what that means, because it does not mean running in circles and having a tantrum and like freaking out. That's not what I'm saying. But the first part of it is this. All of us have a part of ourselves that we don't want to look at. And that part actually encompasses two things. It encompasses like emotional shit we have to integrate, past trauma, limiting beliefs. It also encompasses our deepest power. And for the terms of my work, for the terms of my process right now, I'm giving those things two separate labels. So our subconscious self incorporates all the repressed emotions, anger, rage, grief, big desires that society, life, teachers, others have told us were taboo. It encompasses like the taboo. And at the same time as encompassing the taboo, it also holds our deepest power, like the power to move mountains. So if you're doing these things to truly live from your own quote unquote sacred feminine lineage, and that applies both to business, impact, leadership, purpose, but it also applies to leaving tribal programming, leaving cultural programming, and claiming your own name. The missing pieces that are required, and I think I said that there was one, but I'm going to name two, are reclaiming the inner bad girl, as well as connecting to the faces of the dark feminine. The inner bad girl is the part of us, individually and collectively. The inner bad girl is the part of us that holds the rage, the shame, the grief. It's also the part of us that holds other forms of quote unquote taboo. Taboo being desire in this culture, whether that's sexual desire or financial desires that have been shamed or shut down or you've been told not to have, or even any sort of desire that, lies outside of quote unquote culturally acceptable. And the other part of this is deepening the individual connection, your individual connection to the dark feminine. And what that means is, on a somatic and embodied level, it's about reclaiming personal power. And then there's a larger spiritual piece that goes beyond even that. So if you've been using things like law of attraction, and I'm talking about in your transformational process, not from a strategic business standpoint, if you've been using things like law of attraction, if you've been using things like mantras, if you've been using things like meditation, if you've been using things even like, say, talk therapy, affirmations, and you haven't been having the emotional, the spiritual, the psychological breakthroughs that you desire, it's very, very likely because you have not been working with these two key pieces. If there's questions about this live or questions on the replay, go ahead and pop them in. Okay. So I wanted to jump on and do this and share this relatively brief thought because starting on November 16th, I am launching an event called Bad Girl. It's a free event. And I'm going to put the link in the comments after this live stream so you have it. But the event itself, it's not so much about what you do in your leadership or your impact or your spiritual authority, it's very much about who you are on that path. Who is steering the wheel? Who be you on that path to the next level of impact, that next level of service, or that next level of personal spiritual authority, whether you ever bring it to the masses or not. So what we're going to be doing inside that event is, pausing because I actually did jot something down for this. We're going to be briefly touching upon calling in your higher self and your own sacred feminine lineage, which is very, very different than tribal programming. It's very different than ancestral trauma. We're not going to be trying to work through any major trauma or programming in the event itself because it's very introductory. But we're going to be briefly calling in who you truly are and the spiritual lineage slash ministry leadership that is yours to create. Then on day 2, we're going to be calling in the bad girl. And we're going to be rewilding you, calling back your wildness, your ferocity, your power through reconnecting to grief, rage, desire, especially desires that you have been taught were taboo, too big, too much. And on day 3, we're going to be jumping into alchemy and the alchemist path, which is really the journey of how do we work with the bad girl as well as the dark faces of the divine feminine for your next levels of leadership, impact, and wealth in the world. So I would love to have you join us. My last event was women only because we were working with Tantra and sacred sexuality. For this event, all genders are welcome. However, this is a all genders welcome party. However, there are some other requirements that are not about gender. However, it is required that you have done at least several years of personal healing, personal clearing work, personal psychotherapy, or received several years of transformational coaching. The second requirement is that you both adore human women and cherish and truly respect human women and have a personal relationship with the divine feminine, whatever that looks like for you. If that is you, you're welcome to join us at the event. We begin on November 16th, and I will be putting a link in the comments. Okay. Much love from Maui.